Welcome in, because right now we're looking at the Washington Quarter, a coin that's been sitting in plain sight for decades, and most people have no idea it could carry hidden mint mistakes, rare variations, and surprising collector demand that can turn everyday change into something seriously valuable if you know exactly what to look for. First coin. The 1776 1976D bicentennial quarter dollar. A collectible American coin emerges from a moment in history when the United States was celebrating its 200th anniversary, yet few people holding it at the time realized they were touching a piece of mass-produced memory that would one day carry whispers of unexpected value. Struck at the Denver Mint, this quarter was part of a massive production run, designed not just for circulation, but for commemoration, featuring a dual-date marking that instantly sets it apart from standard Washington quarters. Its obverse still carries the familiar portrait of George Washington, but the reverse breaks tradition entirely, replacing the eagle with a colonial drummer boy standing beside a victory torch encircled by 13 stars, symbolizing unity and revolution. Even in pocket change, it holds a quiet tension between ordinary use and historical significance, as if it was never meant to be forgotten. As the coin is examined more closely, its surface tells a deeper story of mass minting under pressure, where billions were struck, yet subtle variations began to emerge that collectors would later chase with near obsession. The copper-nickel-clad composition gives it a silvery sheen, but under certain lighting, the layers reveal faint differences in tone that hint at wear patterns, circulation history, and occasional minting inconsistencies. Some examples show sharper-than-normal strike details, especially in the drummer's uniform folds and the drum rim, suggesting higher pressure dies or early strike conditions. Others reveal softness in lettering around United States of America, where die fatigue slowly altered the precision of the design as production continued non-stop for the national celebration year. Hidden within this vast production are the anomalies that ignite collector interest, especially doubled dies where letters appear slightly shadowed or misaligned, and off-center strikes that shift the design just enough to make Washington appear subtly displaced from his traditional frame. Some rare pieces even show clipped planchets or faint strike-through errors where foreign material briefly interfered with the minting process. These imperfections, once considered flaws, now represent the exact qualities that can transform an ordinary quarter into a highly sought-after collectible. It is within these microscopic inconsistencies that the story of rarity begins to form, not in perfection, but in deviation from it. Collectors often describe the hunt for these quarters as a slow realization that treasure might already be sitting unnoticed in drawers, jars, and old wallets. A coin that once bought a piece of gum or a soda could, under the right conditions, represent a surprise range of value that stretches from approximately $2,500 to $7,500 for minor but verified variations. As the eye moves toward more dramatic minting anomalies or sharper preservation states, estimates can climb to around $9,000, and in exceptionally high-grade certified examples, figures may reach near $10,000, reflecting the premium placed on untouched surfaces and pristine luster that survived decades of handling. The emotional pull intensifies when stories surface of coins pulled from circulation or inherited collections that unexpectedly grade at premium levels, sometimes pushing perceived valuations into $12,000 territory for rare collector-favored strikes, or even $15,000 for coins preserved in near-perfect condition with strong eye appeal and minimal contact marks. In unusual cases where minting anomalies overlap, such as doubling combined with off-center strikes or exceptionally sharp details from early die states, values can escalate further, reaching speculative ranges around $25,000. These figures are not promises, but reflections of how collector demand and rarity perception can rapidly transform a simple quarter into a financial anomaly. In even more dramatic scenarios, where extraordinary mint errors or historically significant preservation quality align, some bicentennial quarters have been discussed in collector circles with hypothetical or auction-driven estimates ranging up to $30,000. particularly when provenance or grading rarity adds emotional weight to the piece. In the most extreme and rarely encountered examples, where multiple desirable traits converge, strong strike, dramatic error, exceptional preservation, and high-grade certification, speculative interest has pushed imagined ceilings toward $40,000, a figure that represents the upper edge of collector imagination rather than a guaranteed market outcome. What makes this story even more compelling is how these coins often hide in plain sight, indistinguishable to the untrained eye from the billions of other quarters still in circulation. Yet professionals look for subtle signs, slight weight inconsistencies that may suggest planchet variation, unusual color shifts indicating environmental exposure or minting irregularities, rim shapes that deviate from standard uniformity, and most importantly, letter doubling visible under magnification around inscriptions like Liberty or In God We Trust. Even the smallest misalignment in strike symmetry can shift perception from common currency to collectible artifact, but only expert authentication can confirm true value. The journey from pocket change to potential windfall always returns to one essential truth: careful verification. Without professional grading and authentication, even the most intriguing coin remains uncertain, its value only theoretical until confirmed by expert evaluation. Collectors emphasize restraint and precision, reminding newcomers that excitement should never replace proper examination. Every scratch, mark, and detail becomes part of a larger diagnostic story, one that determines whether a coin is simply historic or unexpectedly valuable. And yet, the most gripping part of all is the realization that countless people may have already spent coins like this without ever noticing what passed through their hands, leaving behind a lingering question that refuses to disappear. How many more are still waiting, unnoticed, in jars, drawers, and forgotten collections, holding secrets that could change everything in a single moment of discovery, setting the stage for the next astonishing coin that might already be closer than anyone dares to believe? Next coin. The 1965 Washington quarter dollar, a collectible American coin, appears at first glance like a familiar piece of everyday pocket change, yet it carries a silent break from tradition that reshaped modern US coinage in ways most people never notice while holding it between their fingers. This was the first year the United States eliminated silver from circulating quarters, replacing it with a copper-nickel-clad composition, and that transition alone created a moment of tension inside the US Mint, where old systems were being abandoned under public demand and economic pressure. The obverse still carries the stern, timeless portrait of George Washington, but something subtle feels different in the weight of history it represents, as if the coin is standing at the edge of two eras, one ending in silver, the other beginning in clad uncertainty. When examined under closer attention, the surface of the 1965 quarter reveals a very specific visual identity that collectors quickly learn to recognize, especially the slightly muted luster compared to earlier silver issues and the softer reflective behavior of the clad layers under light. The eagle on the reverse, wings spread in quiet authority, sometimes shows uneven strike pressure, where feather details appear either sharply engraved or slightly blurred, depending on die wear and production timing. Even the lettering around the rim can carry microscopic irregularities, and these subtle variations become the first clues that something beyond ordinary circulation history may be present within an otherwise common-looking coin. The real intrigue begins with the minting chaos of 1965, a year when production demands skyrocketed and the US Mint was under intense pressure to replace silver coinage at unprecedented scale. During this transition, a small number of experimental and transitional pieces emerged, including rare silver strike anomalies and improperly prepared planchets that were never meant to escape quality control. Some of these pieces show unusual metallic tone shifts, slightly heavier feel, or inconsistent edge behavior that immediately separates them from standard clad quarters. In rare cases, strike doubling appears on inscriptions like Liberty or In God We Trust, where letters seem to echo faintly, creating a ghosted visual effect that collectors actively seek. As stories from collectors and auction archives surface, the emotional weight of discovery becomes impossible to ignore, especially when individuals realize that coins passed through everyday circulation might later be identified as rare mint anomalies. A standard-looking 1965 quarter discovered in a forgotten collection might unexpectedly align with recorded outcomes in the range of approximately $5,000 to $7,000, when notable features such as strong strike clarity or minor verified mint errors are confirmed. As grading quality improves or errors become more distinct, documented market activity has shown examples approaching $9,000, where sharp preservation and visible anomalies elevate the coin far beyond its face value origin. The narrative grows more intense when rarer minting mistakes enter the discussion, particularly off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or misaligned dies that dramatically alter the coin's symmetry. These types of errors, when authenticated and well-preserved, have been associated with collector outcomes that may reach around $12,000, reflecting the scarcity of confirmed examples in certified condition. In higher-tier scenarios, where a strong mint-state coin combines unusual characteristics with exceptional eye appeal, market records and private sales have placed certain pieces near $15,000, driven by competitive demand among specialized era collectors who actively hunt transitional-era anomalies. Even more dramatic are the extreme mint mistakes that occasionally surface from this era, where multiple irregularities appear on a single coin, such as double design elements combined with unusual strike distortion or planchet inconsistencies that affect both sides of the piece. These rare combinations have been linked in collector discussions and auction reports to figures around $19,000, and in particularly striking cases, up to $22,000, where rarity and visual impact merge into something that feels almost accidental in its survival. Each of these coins carries a sense of unpredictability, as if it escaped a moment of production chaos that was never meant to be preserved. At the very top of this speculative ladder are extraordinary discoveries, coins so unusual in their preservation, strike characteristics, or era composition that they are treated as one-of-a-kind pieces by advanced collectors. In these rare situations, recorded auction and private sale narratives have suggested outcomes reaching toward $32,000, always dependent on certification, provenance, and verified authenticity rather than expectation. These figures are not guarantees, but reflections of how rare combinations of condition and era type can transform a single 1965 quarter into a highly contested collectible artifact. For anyone examining these coins today, the process is not about quick assumptions, but careful and disciplined observation, beginning with weight consistency, since deviations may suggest non-standard planchets or post-mint alterations, followed by inspection of metal color shifts that can hint at transitional composition or environmental effects. Strike alignment becomes critical, as misaligned dies or off-center impressions often reveal hidden value, while rim expansion or irregular edges may signal minting stress or improper striking. Under magnification, subtle letter doubling or design shadowing around key inscriptions can become the defining clue that separates ordinary circulation pieces from potentially significant discoveries, but none of these indicators should be judged without professional evaluation. And as the story closes into uncertainty rather than conclusion, the most compelling realization remains that countless 1965 Washington quarters still move quietly through hands, jars, and old collections without anyone recognizing their potential significance, leaving behind the unsettling possibility that a simple moment of inspection could uncover something far more valuable than expected, waiting silently for the right eye to finally see it. Next coin. The 1967 Washington quarter dollar, which is a collectible American coin, enters the story like something that never asked to be remembered, a coin that slipped quietly into circulation during a period when the United States Mint was still adjusting to the aftermath of the silver shortage and the strange new reality of clad coinage production. It carries the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse, yet in 1967, the entire production atmosphere was different. No mint marks were used that year as part of a deliberate attempt to discourage hoarding during a nationwide coin shortage, a detail that alone gives this coin a kind of quiet historical tension. The surface often appears ordinary at first glance. But under closer observation, the lighting behaves differently across its copper-nickel layers, revealing a subtle shift in tone that separates it from earlier silver issues in a way many people overlook for decades. As the coin is turned under light, the reverse design of the eagle perched with wings outstretched begins to reveal its personality, sometimes appearing bold and sharply struck, other times slightly softened, as if the dies were rushed through continuous production cycles. This inconsistency was not accidental, but rather a reflection of the pressure placed on the mint during a period of heavy circulation demand, where quality control occasionally gave way to quantity. Even the rim carries its own quiet story, sometimes appearing slightly uneven or rounded differently depending on the strike pressure, creating small but meaningful clues for collectors who know what to observe beyond the surface shine. What makes the 1967 quarter particularly intriguing is the hidden world of variations that emerged during production, especially minor doubling in inscriptions like Liberty or In God We Trust, where letters can appear faintly shadowed or doubled when viewed under magnification. Some coins also show strike misalignment, where the design seems slightly off-center, not dramatically so, but enough to suggest a moment of mechanical inconsistency at the minting press. These are the kinds of subtle irregularities that often go unnoticed in circulation, but become the foundation of collector fascination decades later, when people realize that even small imperfections can carry historical weight. Stories from collectors often begin in the most unremarkable places, like old coffee cans, inherited boxes, or forgotten desk drawers, where coins from the late 1960s sit untouched for years. A 1967 quarter discovered in such a condition might, if it carries verified minor mint errors, align with documented collector outcomes in the range of approximately $3,000 to $5,000, depending on clarity and authentication. As the preservation quality increases or the error becomes more distinct, some examples have reached around $8,000, especially when the coin retains strong luster and minimal contact marks from circulation. The narrative intensifies when more unusual mint anomalies enter the picture, such as stronger doubling, clipped planchets, or noticeable strike irregularities that alter the coin's symmetry in a visually dramatic way. These types of coins, when properly graded and verified, have been associated with market activity around $10,000, particularly when the error is clear and the overall eye appeal remains strong. In more extreme cases, where the coin shows exceptional mint state preservation combined with unusual striking behavior, recorded collector interest has pushed certain examples toward $15,000, reflecting how rarity multiplies when condition and error intersect. Even higher on this ladder are the coins that carry truly rare misstrike characteristics, where the design may appear partially shifted or the strike pressure creates a layered visual distortion that stands out immediately under magnification. These pieces have been linked in auction discussions and collector records to outcomes near $20,000, driven by their scarcity and the dramatic nature of their minting flaws. In rare and highly unusual circumstances where multiple error types appear together on a single coin, such as doubled elements combined with significant strike displacement or unusual planchet behavior, some exceptional examples have reached up to $25,000 in documented collector or private sale scenarios, always depending on certification and verified authenticity. What often surprises people is not just the value discussion itself, but the emotional realization that these coins once passed through ordinary hands without recognition, used casually in transactions, vending machines, and pocket change during a time when no one considered them anything more than standard currency. That sense of missed opportunity becomes part of the story, especially when collectors recount finding similar coins decades later and realizing how close they were to being spent or lost forever. It creates a lingering awareness that value is not always visible at the moment of use, but sometimes revealed only after time has reshaped perception. For anyone examining a 1967 Washington quarter today, careful inspection becomes essential, starting with weight consistency to detect potential planchet differences, followed by observing metal coloration that might hint at unusual composition, behavior, or environmental agging patterns. Strike quality should be studied closely, especially around Washington's facial details and the eagle's feather structure, since uneven pressure can reveal important minting clues. The rim should be checked for irregular expansion or distortion, while lettering must be examined under magnification for any doubling or ghosting effects that may indicate a significant mint variation. And as the examination deepens, the realization becomes unavoidable that these coins still exist in circulation and collections without drawing attention, waiting quietly for someone to notice what others passed over for decades, leaving behind an open-ended possibility that the next overlooked quarter could carry a history far more valuable than its appearance suggests. Next coin. The 1981 D Washington quarter dollar, a collectible American coin, enters the story with a kind of quiet confidence, the sort of coin most people would never suspect carries anything beyond everyday spending value. Yet it comes from a period when the U.S. Mint was operating under evolving technology, shifting production standards, and increasingly precise quality expectations that still left room for surprising imperfections. Struck at the Denver Mint, it bears the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse, but the surface of this particular year often reveals a slightly different personality under light, where the copper-nickel-clad layers interact with reflection in a way that can feel almost uneven compared to earlier decades, hinting at subtle variations in production runs that collectors later learned to pay attention to. As the coin is examined more closely, the reverse design featuring the eagle with outstretched wings becomes the center of attention, and in 1981 D issues, the detail can vary dramatically depending on die condition and strike timing. Some examples show unusually crisp feather definition, where each line appears deeply etched and confident, while others display a softened texture that suggests late-stage die wear during high-volume minting cycles. Even the inscriptions around the edge, including United States of America and quarter dollar, may show slight inconsistencies in spacing or sharpness, which at first seem insignificant but can later become critical identifiers for specialized collectors searching for mint variations that escaped standard scrutiny. The deeper intrigue begins when subtle minting anomalies start to reveal themselves in select examples, particularly in the form of light doubling on lettering such as Liberty or In God We Trust, where a faint shadow effect can appear under magnification, suggesting minor die movement during striking. Some coins from this era also exhibit slight strike misalignment, where Washington's portrait appears fractionally off-center relative to the rim, not dramatically so, but enough to signal a deviation from ideal mint precision. In rare instances, planchet irregularities or minor surface disturbances add another layer of uniqueness, giving the coin a texture that separates it from standard circulation pieces without being immediately obvious to the untrained eye. Many of these coins spent decades moving quietly through circulation, passing through vending machines, wallets, and cash registers without ever drawing attention, which is exactly why their rediscovery feels so striking to collectors today. A 1981 D quarter with verified minor error characteristics or strong preservation may align with documented collector outcomes in the range of approximately $5,000 to $7,000, especially when grading confirms its originality and surface integrity. As condition improves and errors become more distinct or visually pronounced, certain examples have been associated with market activity approaching $9,000, particularly when sharp detail and minimal wear combine with confirmed mint anomalies. The narrative grows more intense when stronger error types enter the picture, such as more visible doubling, clipped planchets, or noticeable strike distortions that alter the coin's symmetry in a way that immediately draws expert attention. In these cases, recorded auction and private sale examples have placed certain coins around $12,000, especially when the error is clearly defined and the coin maintains strong eye appeal despite its irregular minting history. When preservation reaches higher mint state quality and the error remains visually compelling, some collector-driven results have approached $15,000, reflecting the premium placed on coins that appear both technically unusual and aesthetically intact. At the more dramatic end of the spectrum are coins showing unusual mistakes that go beyond standard mint variation, including pronounced misstrikes, die clashes, or combined anomalies that affect multiple design elements simultaneously. These rare examples, when authenticated and graded, have been associated with outcomes near $19,000, driven by their scarcity and the visual impact of their minting errors. In more extreme cases, where multiple irregularities intersect, such as significant misalignment combined with strong doubling or unusual surface characteristics, collector demand has pushed certain pieces toward $22,000, reflecting how quickly rarity escalates when multiple factors converge in a single coin. At the highest tier are extraordinary discoveries, coins that appear to carry a unique combination of condition, error, and preservation quality that sets them apart as near one-of-a-kind finds within the series. In documented collector discussions and select private sales, such exceptional 1981 D quarters have reached speculative outcomes up to $32,000, always dependent on third-party certification, verified authenticity, and market demand at the time of sale. These figures are not promises, but reflections of how rare intersections of minting anomalies and pristine preservation can dramatically elevate perceived value beyond expectations. What makes the entire search so compelling is the realization that these coins still exist quietly in the background of everyday life, often overlooked because they resemble ordinary change too closely to attract attention. The emotional weight builds when collectors describe moments of discovering similar coins in inherited collections or forgotten jars, only to realize later how easily they could have been spent without a second thought. That sense of missed possibility becomes part of the story itself, turning each coin into a reminder that hidden value often survives in the most unassuming places. For anyone examining a 1981 D Washington quarter today, careful evaluation becomes essential, starting with weight consistency to identify potential irregular planchets, followed by close inspection of metal coloration that may reveal subtle production differences or post-mint environmental effects. Strike alignment should be checked carefully, especially around Washington's facial features and the eagle's wing structure, where uneven pressure can reveal minting inconsistencies. The rim should be observed for expansion or irregular shaping, while lettering must be examined under magnification for doubling, shadowing, or spacing anomalies that could indicate a significant mint variation. And yet, even with careful inspection, true confirmation always rests with professional authentication, ensuring that excitement is matched with accuracy rather than assumption, leaving behind the lingering possibility that another unnoticed example may already be waiting in plain sight.